What are these mysterious circles of ice? Are they a natural process of nature? Can they be recreated in a lab? Or does the answer to this bizarre mystery lie beyond our planet? On December 13, 2007, amateur photographer Brooke Taylor was walking through Rattray Marsh Conservation Area, southern Ontario.
Well, I love to do nature photography, landscapes primarily, creeks and waterfalls and anything that's sort of remote and off the beaten path.
When he got to Sheridan Creek, Brooke saw something bizarre, majestic, and totally unexplained.
So I was coming down here to see what the creek looked like, and as I was coming around the boardwalk over there, I happened to see it. It was about 6 feet, maybe a little bit more in diameter, and it was turning.
Brooke had stumbled upon a strange, beautiful, and mysterious phenomenon.
And I was really amazed. It was so cool, a perfectly round circle inscribed in the ice. And so I set up my camera and started shooting.
Brooke posted the photo on the internet, and after 150,000 hits, he quickly learned that ice circles were a global mystery found across the US, Canada, Europe, Russia. But what or who was creating them? To Taylor, this similarity to a famous English hoax seemed obvious.
Well, I entitled my photograph Creek Circle, Takeoff on Crop Circle, because the crop circles are obviously a little bit mysterious.
For over 2 decades, strange geometrical designs known as crop circles appeared in British farmland. In 1991, 2 men admitted they were behind the hoax. They created these amazing patterns with little more than a length of rope and a plank of wood. So could the ice circles be the handiwork of human hoaxers, just like many crop circles turned out to be?
It's impossible for somebody to generate these circles. The ice is very, very thin, very delicate, very, very fragile. And you try and put any sort of thing to cut the ice, you're going to leave evidence of it, or you're going to have to somehow be standing in the ice or standing in the water to be able to hold whatever tool that you have to cut the circle. So it's Mother Nature doing her finest.
Len Zabolansky is an engineer at the Cold Regions Research and Engineering Laboratory in New Hampshire. Their research helps the U.S. military operate in cold climates.
Ice is nice. This is what we do day in and day out. We have 3 facilities here that we replicate the different the ice processes in different phases. We're in the test basin where we do flat ice, sheet ice. We have another facility where we bring a river system inside, and then we have a large general research area.
Len sees a fundamental problem facing people wanting to hoax an ice circle. Because ice floats on top of the flowing river, there's no support below.
The ice doesn't have any strength whatsoever. It's a very delicate process, and it's the water that's sort of holding it together, and there's basically no strength in this. For anybody to try and go out and do that, the ice has no strength, and so he has to basically stand in midair to be able to do this, and that's physically impossible.
Zabolinsky believes these perfect ice circles are formed by a unique combination of natural processes. And for the first time, using a unique experiment, he intends to prove it.
The way the ice circle is formed is basically in a back eddy. The ice will follow the water, and if the water goes in a circle, so will the ice. And what happens in the winter environment, ice that's coming down into this backwater area actually goes around as well. And as the ice is contributing into this background, it continues to grow in a larger and larger circle. If you look at an ice circles that we've had pictures of, it looks like a vinyl record, because everything is all very circular with different little ridges around. So what's happening is the ice is coming down, bangs into the circle, and it just sort of squashes in, and you get a little ridge. And that ridge just keeps building up in time and getting larger and larger and larger and larger in diameter.
Like a grist mill, the rotating ice circles grind against the surrounding ice, creating a perfectly round circle and its mirror image.
The 2 pieces will sort of nest together with a little bit of open water between them. And there's a very narrow gap that you can actually see the milling process actually taking place.
Len believes this is exactly what happened to create the ice circle in Brooke Taylor's photo.
You can actually still see rings. This is the kind of ice circle that we're going to duplicate today.
At the Cold Regions Research and Engineering Laboratory in New Hampshire, engineer Len Zablansky intends to find out with an experiment that has never been attempted before, recreating the conditions that he believes will lead to the creation of an ice circle.
What we've created here is the river process that would contribute to the formation of an ice circle.
In a temperature-controlled laboratory, Len has recreated the prevailing physical and environmental conditions that existed when Brooke Tyler photographed the ice circle.
The water is coming from our upstream reach of the river. It's coming down past, but we have more water coming into this section of the river than we can actually allow to leave, to sort of create a backwater eddy. What happens is the water coming into our eddy reach, our hydraulic section, is less than the water that we're allowing to release from our control section. So we're continually recirculating. That's the recirculating section. And so a little bit of the water will come out, but the ice will actually stay in and continually circulate.
The back eddy is a rotating pool of water Len believes is needed to trap and grow ice into a circle.
We're generating small snow crystals that are settling on the water surface, and that's what we're using to initiate ice. And as the ice forms and creates and circulates around, we're controlling the amount of ice that we're generating so we're not plugging up the system.
The snow acts like a seed and helps ice crystals to form in the flowing water.
And one submersible pump, and as the water comes around, it just shoots it forward along with the ice down into our eddy section.
The experiment begins. Will Len's River form an elusive ice circle?
See, there's a piece of ice that just started spinning around in our circle. It will continue to build. And as it continues to rotate, ice that's coming from upstream may accumulate on the edge, and that's why you're going to start seeing these ridges.
At first, the ice in the back eddy grows as predicted. But it isn't forming as a uniform disk. It's ice, but nowhere near the perfect ice circles he is trying to recreate.
We just jammed it.
Joe Dislodges is a fluvial geomorphologist, or river expert. He believes he has a better theory to explain this weird quirk of nature.
Let's not assume the most wild to start with, and let's start thinking about the true explanations that really help understand these, and that is the science.
But can science explain the 3-mile-wide ice circle in Russia's Lake Baikal?
Features from space look fantastic, but when you're actually on the ground, you get a better sense of what's likely to be controlling them, and probably a different perception entirely about what the composition of them are and what they're made of. So the best science relates to good field evidence, good field investigations, and a lot of the speculation, if you like, or the guesswork that comes from standing afar is a good first approximation, but good science really requires you to be out in the field.
Joe has spent years studying how rivers behave in cold regions like Canada and Scandinavia.
Well, cold climates are fantastic in terms of water and the way water freezes. You can see a whole range of shapes, but one of the most common one is circular, and they come in a whole variety of sizes. They form at different types and times of the year during the cold season, and it's just a tremendous way of understanding how rivers interact with freezing or cold environments.
Joe believes there's another natural process that forms frozen circles on a river. It's called frazzle ice.
Frazzle ice forms in rivers when the water cools to a point where you begin forming these ice crystals, or we call them ice nuclei. The process is called supercooling, when water is just slightly below the freezing temperature and these nuclei begin to form.
As the tiny ice crystals start to collide, they grow into larger clumps of frazzle ice. Ice is lighter than water, so as the clumps grow, the more buoyant they become.
And as they float to the surface, they tend to form these nice circular ice pans, so they actually look like a rather weird phenomenon on the river surface.
It's a promising theory, but Joe's ice pans don't look like the spinning perfect ice circles Brooke Taylor photographed in Ontario. Back at the U.S. Army Cold Regions Research and Engineering Laboratory, Len Zablansky is still having difficulty creating an ice circle in the lab. It's possible the rate of freezing is too slow, meaning new ice isn't filling in the gaps to make a circular shape.
So that just shows you how delicate this process is when Mother Nature is generating these ice circles.
Len decides to drop the ambient temperature.
We've just dropped the temperature 2 degrees, and we're generating more ice and it's freezing faster.
The experiment begins again. This time, the colder temperature is helping build the ice as quickly as it is melted or eroded away.
You can see that some of the ice is starting to freeze into a circle.
As Len predicted, the ice is growing, thanks to new ice crystals joining from upstream and sheet ice growing out from the circle itself.
If we let this run for another 6-12 hours, that ice will become very, very strong.
Allowing his man-made river to flow for hours, Len hopes his experiment will produce a genuine ice circle. The results are remarkable.
This is the first time we've created an ice circle of this quality in the lab. Sometimes we've been able to kick out, sometimes we almost had it, but this is the first one that's actually starting to become circular. This is because it's starting to be mature.
For the first time, Zablansky has shown one way ice circles can form.
What the